Okay, everybody. Well, here we are. We're at the beginning of a protest, and we can see quite a few people that are coming out. Probably the best way to commemorate the death of Tupac Shakur is to be at a protest. And here we are. We're downtown. You can see the buildings behind us, and there's going to be a march. It's probably going to go across that bridge, and it's either going to City Hall or La Placita or some other place. You can see we got Mexican flags out here, and it's going to be an interesting night. So I'm going to be streaming this live. We'll see what happens. I think it's definitely going to be an interesting thing. I had on a Joe Collins t-shirt, and they asked me to remove it. And I reached out to Joe. Joe said, look, we're not here for politics tonight. We're here to support. So I took off the Joe Collins shirt. And these are all nice people. They asked nicely. And so I felt good about that. That was a good thing. So, you know, while we're waiting for more people to gather, I'm going to try and get a little bit further away from the music. We got a portable DJ over here, and he's got lots of great music happening. And so, here we go. Let's talk. You know, it is the anniversary of the death of Tupac. Let's talk about that a little bit. I don't know who all even wants to talk about that stuff, but while we're waiting, I can tell you, Tupac said he was going to spark the mind that was going to change the world, and I think that person is Joe Collins. And anybody out there that wants to see change, that's somebody that you can support. Somebody who, he really gets it. He understands. He understands how our system is skewed and how our system is set up against the average person. But instead of, you know, these protests are great. You know, we're going to come out here, we're going to protest, we're going to make a big stink for a minute. But then what changes? And, you know, the riots happened in Watts in 1965. That's 55 years ago. And then, of course, I was only, you know, a wee, you know, baby at that point. But anyway, then we had the riots, the LA riots. That was 92. And what changed? And then we had George Floyd. And what changed? So when we look at this stuff, we really need to, you know, and this is one of the things I appreciate about Joe Collins, is Joe Collins looks at it and says, look, what we have to do is, and he's not saying don't protest, but he's saying, look, the result has to be that we have to change the laws, because who gives the sheriff's power to go murder somebody? Who gives the LAPD power to go murder somebody? You know, it's the laws that give them the power. They're just going to get a slap on the wrist after they murder somebody. Then what needs to change is the laws. And the way the laws are set up, the police really just get a slap on the wrist when they do something that's misconduct. And, you know, now there's a big movement about defunding the police. Well, that's clearly not the answer. We don't need to defund the police. The police need to be funded. And so, you know, just getting rid of the police, you know, disbanding them, that's a bad recipe. Then that means lawlessness is going to come in. And, well, we don't need lawlessness. Let me give you guys a little bit of a look at what we're looking at. We don't need lawlessness. So this protest is an opportunity for us to refocus and figure out what laws need to be changed. You know, the '94 crime bill that was sponsored by Joe Biden is what was used to incarcerate so many people. And, you know, there are corrupt police officers that were involved in Tupac's murder. And they've taken plea deals for drug trafficking and money laundering. Well, okay, what happened to all the cases that those men touched? Nothing has ever happened. Those men, their cases have never been investigated. And one of those guys was put away because his wife was having an affair with one of those corrupt cops. And so all of those cases need to be looked into, and they've never been looked into. It's expensive to look into cases. So, it's not just about the cases, it's about the money that it's going to cost to look into those cases. And, they were involved in Tupac's murder, and those cases need to be looked at. So we really need they call it a page one rewrite in the movie business. We need to re-examine how we police. We need to re-examine the laws that allow policing to occur. So that's what really needs to happen in America today. And Joe gets that. Joe understands the law. He understands what gives policing power to actually patrol and do their jobs. And my personal opinion is, anytime any human kills another human, there needs to be a trial. There needs to be a jury that weighs in on that killing. It's a murder, right? Now, it could be a justifiable murder, but it's still a murder. And so my personal opinion is, every single time anybody murders another human, then that needs to be dealt with by having an investigation and presenting it to a jury of peers to decide guilt or innocence. And if that happened, I think we would see less police killings, because the police would feel like they were a little bit more accountable. Now, by the same token, we cannot defund the police department. That is not a good idea. We don't want to defund the police. That is not something that we want to do, and that's not something we should do, because defunding the police is a recipe for disaster. And we really need to have police in our communities, and they need to be more like Russell Poole and less like Greg Kading. They need to be more like Russell Poole and less like Reggie Wright Jr., Reggie Wright Sr. They need to be more like Russell Poole and less like Rafael Perez, David Mack, Kevin Gaines, all those guys. Okay? I mean, we can't have drug trafficking and money laundering happening with the police department. So, I'm an advocate. We need more officer friendly, and we need less corrupt cops. We need no killer cops, okay? And I'm not saying that it's not going to be justified at some point to actually, for the police to use deadly force. I mean, they are police officers, and sometimes a situation is going to escalate, and they're going to have to use deadly force, and it's going to be justified. But what's wrong with having a trial afterwards to determine, look at all the video evidence, look at all the physical evidence, investigate all the eyewitnesses, and just like any other murder, and make sure that the people that are affected and impacted by that murder get justice. I think that's really what we need to see in our policing. And that's just my opinion. That's not, I want to make it clear, that's not something I've heard from anybody else. But, investigating the murders of Tupac and Biggie, and investigating the Rampart Scandal, and seeing all the corruption and all the associated cases with it, it's a $4 billion problem for just one of the murders, for just Biggie's murder. But when you realize that these LAPD cops, the corrupt cops, were involved in Tupac's murder, it becomes an $8 billion problem, because it's $4 billion for Biggie and then $4 billion for Tupac. And so, the city of Los Angeles, and we can see it right there in the background, the city of Los Angeles does not want to pay out $8 billion in wrongful death stuff. And so, you know, they're going to do everything they can to make sure that this gets covered up, including bringing in a Greg Kading to write a book and have a movie. And, you know, it's all bullshit. Everything that he says about this is all bullshit. He mixes some truths with a bunch of lies, and he makes sure that it always stays away from LAPD. And if you look at people that are involved in the cover-up, they're all affiliated with LAPD, because LAPD was complicit in the murders. And if not just complicit, they were actually active. We know Rafael Perez was at the scene of the Peterson, on duty at the time, and kicking shell casings. We know for a fact that that was happening. And so, you know, that's stipulated to in the Wallace civil trial. So, you know, if they knew that they were, affiliated with those murders and complicit in those murders and actually involved in those murders, they would be responsible to pay out that money. And nobody wants to see the city of Los Angeles bankrupt over that. No judge is going to want to see that. No judge. I talked to a judge about this. A federal judge and I got a chance to sit down and have a drink one night when I was in Century City. I just happened to meet him, and I kind of laid out this whole case for him. And he looked at me and he just shook his head. He said, listen, he said, look, I don't want anybody to know that I said this, but I'm going to tell you the real on this. No judge wants to be part of a train wreck. They do not want to be responsible for bankrupting the city of Los Angeles. So he said, you know, the chances of this ever getting justice, he said, it's probably just not going to happen. And that makes sense, right? What judge is going to want to be responsible for an $8 billion judgment against the city of Los Angeles? So we're probably not going to see that anytime in the future. These cases are not going to officially be solved. And the corrupt cops that were involved, they're not with law enforcement anymore. But law enforcement doesn't want that stigma of having been involved. And that's why we get our answer when, you know, we have Russell go over to the sheriffs and he dies in the meeting with the sheriffs. And I haven't forgotten about that, but I can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I mean, it upset me at the time about Russell and about what happened to him at the sheriff's. And I definitely was not happy about that, and was not happy with the sheriffs. But we need sheriffs. We need LAPD. We need them. We can't do without them. We have to have those guys, you know, those guys and gals. We have to have them enforcing laws. And if we don't have them enforcing laws, we're going to have anarchy. And I've seen anarchy. I was in Juarez when it was the worst, when there were beheadings happening. And that's not the answer. Anarchy is not the answer. So we need to make sure that we support the good police officers and that we push out the bad ones. And that's really what we need to be doing. That's what we need to be doing. So this big rally doesn't look like it's turning out to be that big of a rally. And I know we're just here to be supportive. Kind of want you guys to see, you know, where this whole thing is starting. There's, you know, electrical, sun is setting, there's graffiti everywhere, there's trash everywhere. Look at this, there we go. There we go. Now, I wasn't expecting that. That was kind of cool. I hope nobody gets hurt. So anyway, we really haven't talked much lately about the Tupac and Biggie murders, but I can tell you this, you know, I've been knee deep in some other stuff, meeting with a lot of people that are from neighborhoods that have something to do with this. You guys know I'm working on this campaign, but I've been knee deep in this stuff a little bit more lately than ever before, meeting lots of people that knew the players that were involved. And here's what we know. We got 6 police helicopters in Compton. They're moving the drugs around. That's through the Compton PD. And we know that we have the Rampart Scandal, and we know that there was a drug aspect of the Rampart Scandal. We know that Death Row Records was running records out the front door, and there was drugs going out the back door. Whether it was official or unofficial, there was drugs going out the back door, 100%. Drugs were going on those Learjets that were traveling all around the country, and they were bringing birds from one city to another. What's a bird? It's a kilo of coke. And I've heard many people talk about that, about the keys of coke that were going from one city to another. And so, you know, we know a lot about this. We definitely know a lot about this. And so, you know, this was the climate. And you have an investigation that's happened. And that investigation that's gone on, yeah, I think our guys are here. So, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to end this live stream here, and I'll probably start up another live stream. Take care.